The Day in Tech History is sponsored by CashFly over at CACHEFLY.com, where you can host your podcast and get a 14-day free trial.
Jeffrey Powers here. I welcome you to the Day in Tech History, a full rundown of technology history 7 days a week. Subscribe to the show via iTunes, Stitcher, or download right from dayintechhistory.com. Now let's find out what happened on this day, your day in tech history. November 30th. 1886 is where we're going to start today. George Westinghouse opens the first commercially successful alternating current power plant in the United States in Buffalo, New York. It was to compete against Edison's direct current ventures. 1899, aluminum was first commercially used in the United States as an electrical transmission conductor for the Hartfield Electric Light Company of Connecticut. 1924, the first photograph facsimile was transmitted by radio across the Atlantic Ocean as a public demonstration. They were received in New York, where they were published the next day in the New York Herald Tribune. 1936, the first coaxial cable was installed between New York and Philadelphia for multi-channel telephone tests. 1954, Ann Hodges and the meteorite that struck the Harlan Sickalugla, Alabama. Ann Hodges was bruised in the arm and her hip by a meteorite that fell through the roof of her house and into her living room and bounced off the wooden radio to strike her as she lay on the couch. 1956, the CBS program Douglas Edwards and the News becomes the first live broadcast to ever be video recorded. It was recorded in New York on an Ampex machine and played back 3 hours later on the West Coast. 1959, the IBM 7090, which was the first two mainframe computers, were delivered. The popular transistorized mainframe was designed for the scientific research and large-scale technological applications. 1964, the IBM Data Processing Division introduced the IBM 1800 Data Acquisition and Control System. It could monitor an assembly line, control a steel-making process, or analyze the status of a missile in flight. 1965, IBM Data Processing Division opened the largest computer program library in the world in Hawthorne, New York. Jump up to 1983 at Comdex Trade Show, Radio Shack unveiled the Tandy TRS-80 Model 2000 computer. It featured an 8 MHz Intel 8186 processor, and we pretty much talked about it the day before on the Day in Tech History. You could get all these upgrades. Base price was $2,750. 1989, in Toronto, Ontario, Canada, the World of Commodore trade show was held over the next 5 days. 1997, Activision released the first-person shooter Quake 2 for PC. We don't normally talk about game releases, but when they impact the geek and tech community that much as a game like Quake did, we certainly have to add that into the Day in Tech History. And in 1999, Business.com, which is a search engine, was sold for $7.5 million after it was purchased in 1997 for only $150,000. Also in 1999, Judge Richard Posner, a judge on the United States Court of Appeals in the Seventh Circuit, began meeting with Microsoft representatives and the U.S. Justice Department in an attempt to mediate a settlement in the pending antitrust trial. He was asked by U.S. District Court Judge Thomas Penfield Jackson to mediate negotiations between the two parties after Jackson ruled that Microsoft was, in fact, a monopoly. And Microsoft released Service Pack 6A for the Windows NT 4.0 operating system.
If you love the Day in Tech History, then I encourage you to join my Patreon movement over at patreon.com/geekazine. Your contribution keeps the lights on and more Day in Tech History episodes available. Pledge as little as $1 a month or $12 a year for 365 days of podcasts. Add to that all the content from geekazine.com, morninggeeks.com, and other shows that I produce. That's over at patreon.com/geekazine. Now let's get back into your Day in Tech History.
2004, Fortran 2003 was released. Sounds weird, but that's what happened. Also in 2004, longtime Jeopardy champion Ken Jennings finally loses, leaving the show with $2,520,700, which was the largest prize in U.S. television history. Also in 2004, the optical network speed record was broken by the so-called high-energy physics team with a sustained speed of 101 gigabits per second between Pittsburgh and Los Angeles, which was the equivalent of 180 DVD movies in a minute. Version 2.4 of the Python programming language was released, and version 5.8.6 of the Perl programming language was also released. In 2005, DOC released version 0.7.0 of the Rufus BitTorrent client for Windows. It was notable for being written in Python. And version 1.5 of the Firefox web browser was also released. 2006, AMD releases the 2600 MHz Athlon 64 FX70, the 2800 MHz Athlon 64 FX72, and 3000 MHz Athlon 64 FX74 processors, featuring 1024 kilobits of level 2 cache and 1000 MHz Hyper Transport. Also in 2006, Microsoft releases the Microsoft Windows Vista operating system to volume license customers, which were mostly corporations. And in 2010, Kim Kardashian is the top search result, according to Bing. Playboy announced that they would be selling a digitized version of all 56 years of their magazine on a hard drive. For $300, you'd get all these issues onto a 250 gigabyte hard drive and actually have the Playboy bunny engraved right on top of it. And Yahoo laid off 20% of all its staff. One quick note here. There's times when I talk about a megahertz processor being 2600, for instance, the AMD 2600 megahertz as opposed to 2.6 gigahertz. Now, I could say 2.6 or 2.5 gigahertz instead of 2600 megahertz, but because of the math being so 1024, being numbers of 1024, it might not actually be 2.6 or 2.5 gigahertz. Just so you know. That's your Day in Tech History. My name is Jeffrey Powers, www.dayintechhistory.com. You can get all the show notes over on the wiki page, and of course, you can follow me on Twitter at DayInTechHist. Until tomorrow, take care. And that's your Day in Tech History. My name is Jeffrey Powers, www.dayintechhistory.com. All the show notes are over at wikizine.com, Geekazine's wiki. And of course, you can like the Facebook page and follow Twitter at DayInTechHist. Until tomorrow, take care. Day in Tech History is copyright 2015, JMP Enterprise and Geekazine.com.